Welcome to my home. I am having the joy of telling you stories. And today's story is about another one of my friends. And God has blessed Sandy and myself, my wife Sandy and myself, with some amazing friends. And one thing we learned when we worked in Indonesia, anytime you go into a new location, a new culture, ask God to provide a friend who will help you love that culture, understand that culture, put up with that culture, however you want to put it, but get you through that culture shock of the first 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, when you cannot understand why they do what they do. And so we've done that in Indonesia, and if you want, there's a story about Ilik, my Indonesian friend, who became that cultural bridge for Sandy and me. And he's still our good friend in Indonesia. So we get to China, and after a while, you learn to not be so stupid. I'm good at stupid, but you learn to think, oh, that worked in Indonesia. Maybe I should try this in China. So Sandy and I started praying for God to give us a friend in China, who would be our cultural bridge that would help us, because China's different than Taiwan. Sandy and I grew up in Taiwan, but Taiwan has its own culture. It's Chinese, but it's not the same Chinese culture as the mainland of China. Hong Kong's not the same. Singapore's not the same. They're all different. And North China is different than South China, East and West. I mean, China is very, very diverse. And we decided not to be stupid like when we went to Indonesia at first and assume we understood. We realized right away we did not understand. So we dug into our work. And God gave us a lot of contacts, a lot of people. But along during I don't know what year it was, we'd already been there a few years. We'd had a number of friends that had helped us develop relationships with the Chinese world, the culture, their work, their ethics, their values. And it was moving along well, and I thought, I'm pretty smart. I know China now, and God's blessing Evergreen, our organization, and I'm really having an impact in the country, and yada, 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 yada. And so things are going along well. We've done a lot of projects, a lot of events, and I get a call from one of our doctors. We had quite a medical program. At one point, we had 6 family practice doctors, and one of the doctors called me up, and he's from Davis in Northern California, and he's, brilliant guy. Says, Finn, you need to meet this guy. I'm going, Dave, Dr. Leung. There's 3 million people living in Taiwan now, and I think I already know 1 or 2 of the 2 million of them. I don't need to know more people. He said, no, Finn, you need to know this guy. Now, you need to know David Leung. He was not a extrovert. He's a medical doctor, brilliant in his field, but he was not pushy when it came to this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, why is Dave telling me I need to meet? So, okay, be smart, Finn. Ask good questions. So, Dave, why do I need to meet this guy? And he goes, well, he's the driver. The driver of what? Well, we were recruiting someone to be the medical assistant for our medical work here in Shaanxi. And this guy saw our advertisement at the local church and drove his friend up, who he thought was qualified to be our medical assistant. I said, well, that sounds cool. Why do you want me to meet the driver? Well, the guy that came and applied for the job for medical assistant was overqualified. He had a master's degree in medical administration or something like that. And, he didn't need to be the medical assistant. He could have been the director. And so he was overqualified. But then I found out about the driver, who turned out, and all he could say was, Finn, you got to meet this guy. So I call up this guy. And his name is Asa. So first of all, I said, where did you get the name Asa? And he's going, I was reading through the Old Testament, and he's one of the few kings that didn't screw up everything, that did a few good things in the Old Testament. And so I decided I'd take that name. So his Chinese name is not Asa, but his English name is Asa. He took that name. I said, so where did you come to know the Lord? He said, well, I was at university in Kunming, and I was led to the Lord by some English teachers. So thank you, English teachers that went to China in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And he came to know the Lord there. I said, so, wow. So what are you doing now? And he goes, well, I'm the IT director for my county in Shanxi. So, okay, what did you study in Kunming when you were there? Oh, I studied seismology, earthquakes and glaciers and, all the stuff that moved mountains. I said, so you're an IT director. Okay. So what are you really doing? He goes, well, I run 3 businesses. I started 3 little companies. One's I sell shoes and I sell cigarettes, and I forget what the third one was, in different stores. And I make the businesses thrive, and then I sell the businesses to other people. So you're an entrepreneur. You're a businessman. You're a scientist. Where'd you learn your English? Because he was speaking amazing English. He goes, oh, I decided that, probably having English would be good, so I just started studying it on my own. So what's your degree in? He goes, well, I'm a lawyer. Asa, who are you? He goes, well, I finished university in seismology, and I can't stand... No, he didn't say I can't stand seismology. He said that just didn't do it for me. So I studied law. So you studied law after university. Did you go to law school? No, I just did it on my own. Well, how did you get a law degree? He said, well, I passed the bar exam. I said, okay. So you passed the bar exam. You've got a law degree. So what are you doing with law? He goes, oh, I really don't like law that much. Actually, he didn't say that right away. I first got him a job in an international law firm in Beijing for 4 or 5 days, and he just came back, nah, that's not me. That's, I'm not ready to commit my life to that stuff. I say, Lord, who is this guy that you have put me in touch with? So I don't even know the chronology anymore. Asa came back, and his little province, you need to understand, the county he came from was the poorest county in the province of Shanxi. Now, Shanxi is the most backward province. I'm going to say this, and anybody from Eastern Kentucky, I'm sorry, but it is the Eastern Kentucky of China. It is the poorest province, the most backward province in all of China. And he was from the poorest county in that province. And he had won his way to university, studied all this stuff, become English proficient, law proficient, business proficient. And then I said, Asa, what are you doing now? And he said, well, I got a job as an office manager for a friend of mine in the town I grew up in. I said, okay, now you need to know in the Asian culture, family and friends are ultimately important. You don't mess with people from your same village or your same family or your town. And so this was the guy who ran a coal mine from the town that Asa had grown up in. And he knew Asa was smart. Now, you need to know Asa was like 5'6" when he went to college. He had been starving through school. And when he went to college, he gained like 5 inches, 6 inches, and he became like 5, what would that make him? 5'12", that's 6 foot. He's pretty tall now and healthy and strong. But this guy from his hometown saw in him a power and a beauty that he wanted. And so he hired Asa as his office manager. Well, it was that year that the Chinese government decided to deregulate the cost of coal from Shanxi companies that were state-owned and controlled. And so Asa suddenly became the manager of a coal mine company that was now making millions of dollars, probably closer to billions of dollars, but I don't have the data on that. But suddenly Asa is the head of one of the top coal mining companies in Shanxi province, and Shanxi is coal. So later I'm asking Asa, so what are you doing? He goes, oh, well, I'm running a real estate company now. So what? You're the coal company manager. He goes, no, my boss likes me so much. He said, Asa, you should have your own company. I'm going to give you $40 million to run a real estate company. What? And so Asa goes off and starts his real estate company. He builds a skyscraper in our city of 4 million people. And he does this and that and whatever. And I'm going, so how's it going, Asa? And he goes, well, every afternoon I go home and I just relax and I don't do much work, I can get all my work done in the morning, and then my daughter starts yelling at me for being a lazy bum. What? Now you need to know his daughter is a teenager at the time, and she's taken my wife's name because she has very strong faith, and she wanted to be named after my wife, Sandy, so she took the name Sandy. And she is intense into her faith and where God's taken her, and she's disgusted with her dad sleeping in the afternoons. He's like 35, 40 years old now, worth millions of dollars, working in one of the top companies in China, and his daughter's pushing him around, straightening him out. Let me tell you, I can't say too much here because there's some confidentiality that I've probably already broached. But Sandy became a beautiful daughter who actually fulfilled one of her dad's dreams, and that was to go to Columbia University and get her law degree from Columbia, which Asa always thought would have been the cool thing to do. But he didn't do it. He was too early in the whole scheme of things from China, but his daughter was able to go to Columbia in New York City. Asa worked for me for 2.5 years as my secretary. When I met him, when he was the driver for the guy looking for the job for the assistant to the medical team, he didn't get the job. But I hired Asa first to be the teacher for my kids in Chinese, and second to be my assistant. Asa and I spent 2 years running around China doing some of the most amazing projects, which will probably be some of the other stories in here. When I went home in 2003 to the States for my kids to finish high school, Asa said, Finn, if you're not here, it's too boring. I got to go on. That's when he went and got the job as the office manager for this coal mining industry. And I came back, and he would pick me up at the airport, and he'd drive me around in his fancy cars, and he'd take care of me. God's crazy stories. We can get distracted by money, by power, by influence. The real thing is our relationship with the Father. And Asa had a relationship with the Father. He still has a relationship with the Father. And in that relationship with the Father took him on a journey that no one in China could have dreamed of at that time. There are a few people that have wild, crazy lives. Where's God taking you? God crazy stories. What's your God crazy story? Thank you for listening to mine.